On April 26, the South Korean government advised all remaining South Korean workers inside the Gaeseong Industrial Complex to return home.
Sung-hee, what's the latest?
Guys, a total of 50 South Korean workers were waiting to return home.
Unification Ministry Correspondent Hwang was on standby to connect live when workers were scheduled to return during the morning hours of April 29th. However, with long delays, Sung-hee connected live in the early hours of April 30th. And another live connection was made on May 2nd at the Ministry of Unification's emergency press conference when the government announced it will provide 300 billion won as emergency funds for South Korean businesses affected by the pullout.
Updated throughout the day, guys.
South Korea-U.S.
This week, Defense Ministry Correspondent Han Da-eun reported about the joint South Korea-U.S. military exercises that ended on Tuesday. The 2-month Foal Eagle exercises was the reason behind North Korea's military and nuclear threats, as well as the forceful closing of the Gaeseong Industrial Complex. According to Da-eun's reports, although the military trainings have come to an end, the South Korean military will continue to be on full alert mode until concrete resolutions are made with the reclusive regime.
Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
The National Assembly decided on the guidelines for the fiscal year 2014 budget. Many are keeping a close eye on this year's budget guidelines to see if the new administration is truly reflecting its push for creative economy and public happiness. Economics correspondent Kim Han-ul told us which department and industry budgets will either decrease or increase.
Arirang News.
The largest of the four main games.
South Korea's national treasure #1, Sungnemun, returned back to its original place after 5 years and 3 months of restoration. After Sungnemun was destroyed by fire on 2008, some 30,000 traditional master artisans worked around the clock to bring the gate back to life. The treasure will officially open up to the public on Saturday, and reporter Kim Ji-yeon gave us a sneak peek of the newly erected and updated Sungnemun, equipped with advanced surveillance systems.
On Saturday. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
It's time for the news lineup meeting, and reporter Hwang seems like she has something on her mind.
선배, 저 다음 주 5월 1일 취재를 아직 안 해가지고 5월 1일이 발효인데요. 공산품 같은 거는 올리브유 이런 거라서 그러니까 지금은 이제 즉시 철폐되는 거 위주로 나가는데 그래서 그냥 제가 뭐 재밌게 CG 뭐 몇 개 만들어가지고 크게 3개든 몇 개든 캐릭을 정해서.
If the pact becomes a reality, it would create the world's third largest economic bloc. Our Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Jia has been covering much of the FTA-related news.
Borrowing cost steady for this month, analysts which were transferred to the Ministry of Trade,
And now she prepares another FTA story.
Is planning to invest around $3 million.
From about 2 months ago, I started to be in charge of FTA stories, and I've done FTA-related stories like the Korea-China-Japan FTA, the TPP, on what changes Korea has gone through after a year of the implementation of Korea-U.S. FTA, and I got really interested about FTA-related stories, and also I kept a close eye on FTA-related newses. So since then, since about 2 months ago, I started to keep an eye on those issues, and this was one of them, and I thought it would be also interesting.
Finally, Jia confirms her in-depth news appearance. Now it's time to get the ball rolling and decide on her news angle with the Korea-Turkey FTA story. But the more she researches, the harder it gets.
The fact that Korea and Turkey, the trade volume between Korea and Turkey is not that big was sort of a concern when I was doing the report for my News in Depth, because in a way, because the trade volume is not that huge, people would really not feel the benefits or changes through the FTA. So, which means that it's harder for the reporter to personalize the story to make it more approachable for people who are viewing my news, my story. But there's always a way to make it interesting, I guess, so yeah.
Despite all the complications, she decides to put her best foot forward.
예, 연구원님 안녕하세요. 저 아리랑 TV 황지혜 기자라고 하는데요. 아, 명진호 연구원님 자리에 안 계세요? 아리랑 TV 황지혜 기자인데요. 다름이 아니라 지금 한터키 FTA 관련된 취재를 하고 있는데 5월 1일 발효 관련해서 혹시 관련 인터뷰를 해주실 수 있는지 하고 전화를 한번 드려봤어요. 알겠습니다. 감사합니다. 네. 예, 연구원님 안녕하세요. 저 아리랑 TV 황지혜 기자라고 하는데요. 다름이 아니라 제가 5월 1일에 발효되는 한터키 FTA 관련한 취재를 하고 있는데 관련된 인터뷰가 좀 부탁드릴 수 있을까 해서. 네, 괜찮습니다. 네, 한국어로 해주셔도 충분해요. 근데 그게 뭐가 좀 의미가 있나요? 이번 그 FTA가 좀 예. 저기 소비자들이 이렇게 예를 들면 EU FTA처럼 와인처럼 이런 게 조금 와닿는 게 있나요? EU 통해서요. 네. 예.
A detailed interview continues with the expert.
네네네. 그럼 저희가 오전 10시까지 저기 기타로 가서 연락을 드릴게요. 네, 감사합니다. 네.
Well, most of the time I do pre-interviews with the interviewee because that helps me to better understand what I'm talking about, and it helps, and it actually gives me a better soundbite, a better interview once I really get to meet my interviewee. And also, I think once I pre-interview my interviewee, they get to know what I want to talk about. They get to know what the issue that I want to talk about within the topic. So I guess through a pre-interview, both the interviewee and the reporter have a better understanding on what we really want to get out from this interview. So it results in a better result. So I mostly do the pre-interviews.
The Korea-Turkey FTA was first mentioned last year at the two countries' summit meeting. The objective of this story is to find out what's special about the Korea-Turkey FTA compared to other treaties. After expert interviews and various research, Jie is starting to realize which way to steer her story.
예, 연구원님 저 황지혜 기자인데요. 저희 48층으로 올라가면 되나요? 네네네, 저희 지금 올라갈게요. 네, 제 기자입니다. 근데 이게 제가 또 이렇게 전화를 해보고 좀 사전 취재를 좀 해보면 예를 들면 제가 다른 FTA를 봤을 때는 3점 몇 %씩 경제 효과가 GDP가 늘어날 거다 5년 안에 이건 0.01%밖에 그 안에서 제가 수치를 보고 어저께 조금 놀랐었는데 이게 그러니까 이번 FTA가 좀 어떤 의미가 있는 건지 위주로 이제.
Jie conducts her interview as if it's a casual conversation. This is her strong point, bringing hospitality and professionalism even to some of the most formal talks.
사실 우리나라가 거대 경제권하고 이제 자유무역 협정을 체결했을 때 경제 효과가 굉장히 크잖아요. 근데 터키는 교역량도 작고 뭐 어떤 의미가 있는 건지.
지정학적 중요성 때문에 글로벌 기업의 투자가 지금 집중하고 있고요. 또한 터키 자체로도 한 7,400만 명의 내수 시장을 갖고 있습니다. 그 시장을 선점하는 효과가 기대됩니다. 특히 우리의 경쟁국이라고 할 수 있는 일본이나 중국 같은 경우는 지금 터키와 본격적으로 FTA 논의가 되고 있지 않은 상황이기 때문에 뭐 그런 측면에서 좀 유리할 것 같고요. 그다음에 터키 현재 진출해 있는 우리나라
For her news in-depth appearance, GA needs to get 2 or more expert interviews.
말씀해 주신 게 사실 관세 철폐의 의미보다는 이제 장기적으로 먼 미래를 바라보는 거다. 그러면 앞으로 이런 효과를 극대화하기 위해서는 어떤 뭐 과제랄까 뭐 아니면은 뭐가 더 남아 있는지.
양국 경제 규모에 비해서 교역량이나 투자량이 아주 미미하다는 얘기는 잠재력이 매우 크다는 얘기죠. 이번 FTA를 계기로 해서 이런 잠재력을 어느 정도 현실화시키려면 산업협력이요. 양국 간의 산업협력이 활성화돼야 됩니다. 이런 투자 협정이 앞으로 이제 정부 간 협정에서 저희 측에 유리하게 아주 잘 이루어져야 된다는 과제가 남아 있습니다.
네, 감사합니다. 됐습니다.
The experts were saying, although despite the fact that ordinary people or consumers or related industries wouldn't really feel the benefits in a short term, they're saying that the FTA is still meaningful in that it's a very future-oriented FTA. Because Turkey is a huge emerging market. The experts said that Korea, not in the short term, but in the long term, that Korea could see some great benefits coming forward. So that's what they were talking about, and I also agreed with them.
All the shooting is done. Now it's time for GA to write up the script. Usually news packages are 2 minutes long, but for news in depth, it needs to be 5 minutes. So GA decides to put more focus on her news graphics.
18시. 근데 뒤에 그냥 그림이 흐르는데 왜 좀 커다란 반투 있지?
아, 백은 선배 영상으로
할 거야. 근데 그냥 그 반투인데 좀 크게 넣어도 돼. 텍스트도
뭐
어차피 많으니까.
이 정도 되면 한 이 정도?
예, 상관없어. 글씨가 잘 보이게 해줘.
그 뒤에 영상 깔면 한 이 정도 투명도고 이게 첫 번째 거. T만? P만. 하나씩 나와. 허전해서 그냥 이거 깔.
고마워.
Yes, as you said, CGs are always very important for economics news because they visualize the numbers that I use in stories, which is quite hard to understand for the viewers because, if you hear a lot of numbers, you get really confused. But in this case, I tried not to use numbers a lot in my news in depth because I thought it wasn't really critical since the trade volume, the trade volume between the two countries is not that big. The tariff cut really doesn't mean a lot, so I rather sort of focused on the benefits that the Turkey-Korea FTA would bring in terms of the potentiality. So this time I used my CGs in sort of visualizing, sort of summarizing what I'm talking about, and I guess that is, again, critical as much as visualizing the numbers because it gives a better understanding because you instantly catch what the reporter is talking about.
올라오네. 그럼 여기가
Before the live show, GA doesn't forget to discuss last-minute details with primetime news anchor Yoo Ji-hye.
That there aren't many products that fall under the newly implemented trade deal.
This time, there's more to worry about, as it's not just a news package. GA is appearing live on News in Depth.
It's the same, right?
There's still a prompter, right?
I think that's what I heard.
At last, primetime news is on. And out of the 30-minute news program, GA is allotted 5 minutes. This is actually a lot of time in news, enough time for 3 regular B-rolls. And GA needs to work with the anchors and lead her story for the next 5 minutes.
What about the service and investment sectors?
Yes, as you said, Sean, the FTA with Turkey currently deals only with products, and negotiations for similar deals for services and investment sectors are set to be launched within a year. Bilateral trade volume only makes up 0.5% of Korea's total trade volume. Nations like Chile and Peru, tariffs on all Korean industrial goods exports like automobiles, auto parts, televisions, and steel are going to be lifted over the next 7 years. This free trade deal with Turkey.
It wasn't easy, but GA's long haul to finish one story is finally over.
I think for every news, personalizing the story is very important, and especially for economics news, I think that's even more important because you have to let the viewers know that this is your story, you know? This is not something going on, right? And that's not really related to your life. But in this case, it was slightly hard to personalize, as, you know, the ordinary consumers really don't feel the benefits or changes of the FTA. And so that's why I try to outshine the fact that Turkey is a very, as a nation with a high potential. And I guess that's what I learned from the report, from my News in Depth.
American nuclear weapons in the South. And I said, they're not there. He questioned that. And so this is non-negotiable. From the North Korean perspective, I think it's very important to get North Koreans out of North Korea. But I'm doubtful. I don't think China would really place a full embargo, an economic embargo on North Korea.
Have you looked at the questions?
Yes.
You want to take a seat first?
So what's your take on the situation?
Okay, let's see. Well, I guess it's certainly unwelcome. It's troublesome in many ways, but on the other hand, it's not surprising.
Do you think it's strictly, I don't know, working level, whatever, they need to make payments or whatnot?
They want to reorient relations with the South. They want to challenge the new president, new administration here. They seek to undermine confidence in the Republic of Korea, challenge the U.S. ROC alliance, the UN Security Council. So there are many things they seem to be dissatisfied with.
Yeah, remember when Kim Jong-un first came into power, we were like, oh, he was educated in the West. Perhaps we could expect something more.
I didn't.
Oh, really?
No, I didn't. That's how I got into arguments with people about that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. People were saying, oh, he's not going to, generals and these older generals, these guys in their 50s and 60s and 70s, they're not going to listen to him because he's so young and inexperienced. But the fact that he's Kim Il-sung's grandson and Kim Jong-il's son, he is someone. He is someone very important. Now, if he were to reform, what we'd have to do, he would have to renounce the ideology, the institutions, the governance, and the whole legacy of his father and his grandfather. And if he were to do that, then he would just be some 30-year-old guy, right? And also, he would have to dismantle some of the institutions. He would have to liberalize and introduce competition. He'd have to strip away monopoly and monopsony property rights, right? And this would affect people's wealth and power and control, and people will kill you over it. A lot of headaches. I mean, you people are gonna have to deal with a lot of stuff. Just terrible stuff, man. And just a generation of people who are stunted and development problems, and just a lot of issues. I mean, in this scenario,
which I actually I don't see war breaking out here in the Philippines. I don't know. Maybe I'm just
I think it's a low probability event, but sometimes it's not impossible.
I'm just hoping for them to not take the just the Cheonan worship or the Yeonpyeong Island kind of provocations where they will lead to casualties.
It's just been continuous. There have been periodic acts, if you want to call them provocations or military attacks. There have been acts of war. You can't predict those with pinpoint accuracy, but whenever leadership decides for whatever reason it serves their interests, they could very well do that. So that's why surveillance and monitoring and deterrence are so important.
Yep. So I'll be seeing you in a little bit.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
It is 5 a.m. in New York, 10 in London, and 6 on a Tuesday evening here in Seoul.
From North Korea have a positive effect on inter-Korean relations. Han Da-eun reports.
Daniel Pinkston, Senior Analyst at the International Crisis Group in Seoul. Welcome, Daniel. Good to have you back in the studio.
Hi, great to be here.
So first, your take on the current situation.
In the domestic politics in Pyongyang, maybe the military wants to take over this facility.
And water purification. And I think they're probably trying to figure out.
It does have that negative impact on business.
Or maybe they want to hand it off to some other internal organization and committee to run it as an economic complex. Or to have so.
Okay, thanks for having me.